Yeah. You thought you were set. You thought you were in. You're like, you know what?
I really did.
Acting's easy, man.
But you know what I realized? This is what I realized.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to get back to that place. It really is. It was like when I joined my agent and I first started acting, I kind of had this attitude of like, I wasn't really thinking about, like, how do I say this? I didn't really, not to say that I didn't care, but it was like there was this excitement of this being like, okay, these are my first auditions, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't putting pressure on myself with it. And I had a lot of like directors say, you know, the difference between sometimes who they book and who they don't book is like the energy that comes into the room. And I think my energy back then, and I think my energy back then was a little bit more like loose and more like, oh, whatever, if I get it, I get it, if I don't, I don't.
Yeah. It's hard to make people laugh, okay? Because you have to act in a way that you're not performing for them, but you're actually like, because when the scene is funny, it's not funny for the character.
No.
You know what I mean? As a character, it's not funny, but it's funny for the audience. All right, guys, welcome back with the 4th episode of Breakthrough. In today's episode, I have one of my friends and amazing actor, Lanisa Dawn. So, Lanisa, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for coming. I mean, like, it's my first podcast Montreal edition. This is usually like a Vancouver thing, but I was like...
So I'm your first Montreal
You're my first guest in Montreal.
Nice.
Believe it or not, so...
I feel honored.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You should. I love that. Okay, cool. Let's get started. So, I do want to ask you, like, I mean, obviously, like, you're a actor who was living in Montreal and auditioning, and so how did you start? Like, how did you get started into acting? What sparked the interest? What got you into it?
That's a great question. So it started when I was really young. I feel like that's usually the case with a lot of people, right? Or some people kind of get their spark a bit later on, but for me, it was when I was really young. I got into acting when I was in elementary school, honestly, not on a professional level, but just always doing like school plays and things like that. And I was always kind of the girl that was known for that, especially in high school. Like I did all the school plays. I did even like jam fests and stuff like that because I sing as well. So I was always like in the variety shows and the jam fest. And I always felt like it was this talent of mine that made me feel like unique in some way, because when it came to school, like I wasn't a bad student or anything, but I was very average, if that makes sense, you know? And this was like the one thing that even like adults would comment on, especially when it came to music stuff, like my singing. I had a very like big full voice. It was quite deep for my age, especially. So when I was singing, it was like, sorry?
Like a deep voice, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like when I would sing, especially like, you know, when I was like 13 years old and I would sing these songs, but my voice was quite like deep and full. So it would be surprising, especially for adults.
Yeah.
Now I've probably like grown into my voice, I would say, but at the time it was like I was this little girl with like a really big voice, you know? And so I would always have like adults commenting on that, and it was kind of just like my thing, I guess. So it was only natural that after high school I went into theater school. Afterwards. Like I had
Where'd you go? Well,
Dawson College.
Dawson, nice.
I did the Dome Theater program. I did 2 years out of the 3. I quit after my second year. I hate saying that because I
couldn't sit
don't
for the
like to be a
last.
quitter, but I quit because I was so young at the time. Well, you know, it's funny. Okay, it was one of those things, right? I went from high school where I was like known to be that kid.
Right.
And you're kind of like, I don't want to say the best, but like you're like, you know what I mean? Like
you were killing it, yeah.
You know that you have like that talent or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get into the school where like literally all the other kids there.
They're all as good, if not more.
Yeah, if not more. Probably way better than me. Some of them came from like high schools that were actually arts performing high schools, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, okay.
That's what I'm up against.
Yeah. And but on a more serious level, it actually like I really kind of like lost myself in that program. Like I also felt like Dawson was a bit weird. Like I don't know. I don't want to say that because like I do feel like I got really good training there, but I also felt like you're so young, and I feel like they could have been a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Encouraging. Like I felt like the environment there was very like tough and very much, which makes sense because it is a tough industry.
Yeah.
But I still feel like you're in this mode of learning, right? And I feel like it's better to take an approach of encouraging rather than like beating people down and making them feel like you're not really gonna do anything. Like I remember a lot of the teachers being kind of
so they were like really harsh and then kind of like talking you down and stuff like that, or
I mean they just kind of made you feel like that this industry was like really impossible.
Really?
If that makes
Wow.
sense. Yeah. And there's like a lot of weird things.
What a message to kickstart your career. It's like your coach is like telling you.
Yeah, I don't know. That's how it was. That's how it was at the time. Not all of them though. You know, not all of the teachers were like that, but there was a few. I just felt like they kind of got like a kick out of sort of like beating people down, if that makes sense. Like making them feel. There was a lot of. There was one teacher in particular, and anybody that went to Dawson will know this story. I don't want to really get into it too much, but there was one teacher in particular that was kind of like a bully.
What was his name?
I'm not gonna go there. People can look up Dawson College
I'm just kidding.
and they will see the articles come up. But there was like one teacher, he was kind of like a bully, and I just feel like he got a kick out of sort of like bringing people down. But I think it was also an old school mentality as well, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of like there's kind of this old school mentality, right, of like breaking people down to build them up, and I feel like that's happened a lot. But now the industry's shifting from that. But I feel like there was a lot of that at one point, and
almost like torture, where you beat someone up to open them like emotionally and like not really.
Yes, I don't really believe in that like method of
belittling
doing things. You know?
I agree. I mean, I guess like I could try to understand why someone would like revert to these tactics to get someone to
like a reaction,
but I don't think in the long run it serves a purpose.
No, I don't think it does. There's this actress I know who was living in LA. She's from Vancouver actually, but she had moved to LA and she was doing a lot of acting out there. And she told me this story about being on a movie set, and it wasn't her, but like it was the other actress. The director was so belittling and so mean because the girl had to like cry on camera or whatever. Like it was like a dramatic scene, and the director was using all these tactics to like put her down and belittle her, and even like spat in her face at one point, and then like was like roll the camera type of thing.
Whoa.
And that kind of stuff. I mean, this was a long time ago too, right? I don't think people can get away with that kind of behavior anymore because now the industry's changed, and then there's like Me Too stuff and all of that. It's shifted gears, thankfully. But like when I think of, thankfully, I've never had an experience like that on a set. Like all my experiences have been good, you know?
Yeah.
But when I think about things like that, I'm like,
I have some friends that have like gone through something similar, and it's very sad and traumatizing for sure, because it does scar you. I don't believe in that method either. I mean, I do believe in like pushing someone's through their limits to get something, but like not to like literally break them down to pieces, you know? I think that's extreme.
Well, here's what I believe is like, if you are hired for a job, it means that you brought your talent to that audition and you showed what you can do, right? And so to me, I'm kind of like, as a director, I feel like you should be guiding your actor, but trusting in their process and what they're bringing to be able to give you what you need. You know what I mean? Like if you hired that person, you hired them for a reason that that they showcase what they're capable of and what they can do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this method of kind of like breaking someone down to get the reaction you want out of them, I don't really believe that that's the way to do it. Like, I think there's like, you know, if I think of every actor I know that has gone through the training and knows how to get themselves to that vulnerable place to get themselves to cry on camera and stuff, it's like, you don't have to have someone break you down in the process to get there, you know?
It's like, I mean, it's part of like an actor's journey to be able to tap into your emotions on demand when they ask you to. So that's also like part of your preparation, you know, like that's part of like being a professional actor. It's just being able to use whatever technique you have available to you to get there. You know, like I've heard like many different techniques like that people use to get there. Obviously, like substitution is a big one where you substitute something that is meaningful to you. So
what's your technique?
What I realize like works for me is kind of like a combination of like substitution plus like voicing out words that I don't want to say. You know what I mean? Sometimes if I'm talking about like, if I'm doing a scene and like my friend is dying, right? Then I'll talk about like maybe an experience that I had with my friend where I was really, really betrayed, or maybe like I lost a friend or something like that. And I would like, just like saying the words out loud will just get you there. So that's one way like it'll work. So obviously like that with like substitution.
So, but like, will you be saying those words to yourself internally, or like
no? I'll just say it out loud. I'll just say it out loud.
Say it out loud before starting the scene.
So there's like this thing called capping that I learned, where you kind of like get emotional, and then you put a lid on your emotion. Like you kind of like just close the lid, and then you open the lid when you need to, basically like be emotional or whatever. It's called capping. I learned this where you do like a lot of the emotional preparation in the beginning, and then you basically just like unload it at some point in the scene. But that also like takes a lot of skills, because if you do like a lot of emotional work, right, you prepare it like emotionally, and then you start the scene, but the scene doesn't always start emotional. Like you're seeing like sometimes you're starting out and then you guys are a party, like, you know, like you guys are partying and like you're laughing and you're joking, but then someone dies at the party and then boom, shock, and then your best friend, your girlfriend or something, someone dies and you're like, oh shit, like 180 degree switch in emotion. So again, it's a skill to kind of have to be able to just like really stay connected to the circumstances of the scene, so you can like, okay, like this is the part where like I'm losing someone, or someone who's like a close, like a relative, like a close to mine is dying. So also like what I think also works too is breathing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is a technique that I learned from one of my.
That's a really good one, actually.
Yes, a lot of people like underestimate the power of breathing.
Yeah.
If you ever like catch yourself like crying, you will notice that your breathing changes a lot.
Yeah.
You know, you'll clench your whatever, and then you'll get a little more tense. So sometimes when I'm being emotional, sometimes I just like catch myself like taking a little break with my emotionality to like pay attention of the semantics of it. I'm like, okay, like what's happening right now with me? Like okay, am I shaking? Like what's my heart rate at? Like what's my breathing like? I remember like those things, because if you can like replicate those things, you will get emotional.
Your body 100%.
Your body registers like the.
I actually did this. I did this film once, and I had to cry. Like it was a dramatic scene, and that's when I learned about that, because I was on the set and I was like, oh my god, like I was not feeling it at all. Like, and the director kept like trying to make me redo it or whatever, and I was like, and I was getting annoyed at myself, because I'm like, why am I not feeling this? Like it was not happening, and I could not feel it at all. And the director was so good, because she gave me that advice. She was like, breathe, like before we say action, start breathing like really heavily, as if you're having like a panic attack kind of thing. I'm like, okay. And I was already like really kind of like frustrated, right? Because I wasn't getting there. And then that's exactly what we did. I was just like breathing, you know, like whatever. And she was like, when you're ready, I'm gonna hit action. And she said action, and it was like you said, it's like your physical connects to your mental, you know?
Yeah.
And it all poured out. I was like bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
this is a good technique.
It's like
this works. This works really well.
It does work.
Yeah.
It's like it's really hard to do because you have to be on your breath and you have to be like very focused.
Yeah.
You know, you can't.
Well, you have to be like in the moment.
Yes, you're gonna be distracted.
Right? You have
It's
to,
not gonna work.
and you have to be like connected to the scene in some way. It was like I was connected to the scene, but it wasn't. It was like right there and not fully coming. And she knew that by doing that, it was gonna bring it out.
Great.
You know?
Yeah. So sometimes you gotta do what works.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of techniques people use to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the ones that usually work for me. Just like a mix of like substitution with a bit of breathing and a bit of like just voicing out the actual substitution.
Yeah.
It just gets me there. Now the skill is just like doing it over and over. That's kind of why it's hard to, because getting emotional once is not hard. You know, you can get there, but then if you're not happy with the take, then you have to redo it.
Yeah.
Right? So like obviously like getting emotional and crying and crying and crying like 50 times, that's hard. That takes skill.
Yeah.
Right. So that actually what separates like good actors from decent actors, I think.
Yeah. I think sometimes too, though, it's like this is another thing when people first start out, though, especially with auditions, right? They always say like let's say you have a script and it says the character's crying, like this is the part where you have to cry type of thing. A lot of people will take that quite literally and be like, oh, okay, this is the part where I have to cry, right? Because that's what's written in the script.
Yeah.
But the reality is you don't actually have to cry on that part. You don't even really necessarily need to cry, right? Like I believe in that too. It's kind of like you have to go with how it feels for you in the scene. Like you don't want to like fake it either.
Yeah.
And that's a thing I think is so funny for people that aren't actors. Like you probably get this all the time where when they find out you act, people will always be like, "Oh, you must be such a great liar," or like, "You must be, you must be so good at faking."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, actually,
Fake it till you make it.
no, no. The actual truth is that you don't fake it because you're feeling all the emotions.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, like you're not actually faking it. You're feeling what you're feeling in the scene. That's what makes someone a good actor. You know, if you're faking it, you're not really a good actor.
That being said, there are some people who actually do fake it. Because there are some fake ways of crying, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you can literally just, I think there are like some fake ways of crying where you can just like leave your eyes open. Tear sticks obviously is one of them.
Tear sticks.
Not blinking is another one.
Yeah.
If you just like stare at something and try not to blink, eventually your eye will sort of water and you'll cry. Yeah. So I know like an actor who's really good actually, but he just never he can never cry. He doesn't do emotional stuff. He can't cry. He needs like a tear stick or some gimmicky technique or something, you know. So
I don't think it's that he can't cry. I think he just hasn't tapped in yet enough. Because I used to think that about myself.
Well, that's what you said.
Years ago. Years ago, I was like, oh, I'm not the kind of actor that can ever cry, because I would go to workshops and I would always be in awe of actors that could cry on cue or whatever, and I'd be like, how do they do that? Like, you know? Yeah. And then I'd always be like self-conscious about myself. I'd be like, maybe I'm just not a dramatic actor. I can't do that. Like, I can't do it. But it's all technique, honestly.
It's not, you can't learn it.
Because and it's kind of like, once you really tap into yourself too, I feel like it's a mix of like technique and also being I had an acting coach say you have to be hypersensitive to be an actor. Like you have to have hypersensitivity
to everything. Yes.
To everything. And then it was so weird. Like I don't even know how it happened, but like years later, it was like, oh wait, I actually can cry. But I wouldn't even prepare for it. Like there was like one audition I did, and it was like a monologue thing I had to do. Yeah. And then I No, yeah, it was an audition for a theater thing actually. So it was a monologue from an already existing movie. And every time I do this monologue, I cry because the writing is so good in it.
Yeah.
And it's always at like the same spot.
Yeah.
And it's
that hits you.
yeah, and I'm not faking it. It just always happens. Every time I do this monologue, I'm so into it and I just start crying. And that was when I realized like, oh wow, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then I realized too, that's the other thing. It's like when I felt like I wasn't able to do it, it's because I was always overthinking it. So anytime I would have a scene where it would be like, okay, you like the character's supposed to cry, right? Or this is a dramatic scene. I would be really in my head and I would be doing the lines, but I would be thinking of like, okay, this is where I have to cry. And then you're not gonna cry, right?
No.
Because you're in your head, you're not in the moment of it.
Yeah.
As soon as with more training and more practice and this and that, as soon as I was able to let that go and really be in the moment was when I was able to do it.
Yeah.
Is when you just let go of that.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, actually, us as human beings, we never like try to cry. We always play against it. You try not to cry, but you can't you can't help yourself but to cry.
Exactly.
So again, like when you doing an emotional scene, what you're actually trying is not to cry. You're playing against it, but you're so overwhelmed that it takes over.
Yeah.
Your tears just come out of like, because you just can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's also this thing of like playing against, which I also like, I think you also like just like touched on like one of those techniques as well, which is like to be very connected to the script. That's like another technique that people use. And sometimes it does work with me as well, where sometimes I'm so connected to the lines that I do feel for the character.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel for like, oh shit, that really hit me. Like sometimes like I'm saying a line and I don't know why, like it's just sound like it resonates different in my guts. You know what I mean? And that gets me emotional.
To be honest, my technique is that's the only thing that works for me is if I'm like I have to just be completely blank, not thinking about anything else and connected into the script. It's never worked for me, that technique of like when they say, oh, think of something that's happened to you. Yeah. I've tried that before. Like I've tried. That honestly just puts me in my head and gets me like.
Well, it does. This technique only works honestly if you have to like. It's a good technique, but the thing it's only good if you are emotional from the top of the scene. But as I said, the scene doesn't always start emotional, right? Sometimes like if it's like a breakup scene, you know that you're getting broken up with in the beginning. Yeah. You're thinking this is a date. Like 5 minutes in, the guy's like, hey, we're like it's done. Yeah. And then that will get you emotional. But then obviously if you prepped it where like you're like, okay, I'm gonna like substitute like a breakup that happened with me in the past. Yeah. And then you prep it up, but like and then you're getting emotional, but that doesn't work because the beginning can't be emotional. You guys are on a date and you're having fun and you're laughing, blah blah blah. Yeah. You're thinking it's a date. Yeah. You don't know what's happening, what's coming later. So this thing that you just mentioned where you're so connected that you just naturally get there, this is actually one of the most powerful techniques because you can literally just use it whenever. You're so connected to the script that you're feeling what's actually happening.
It has to be good though.
It has to be good.
Because there's been times where I've had auditions for things and I'm like, oh my god. Like where it's just it's not written in the best way or something, or I don't know. And you're just like, okay, this is not great. Like the writing makes a huge difference.
It's a huge.
I find, you know, like if it's really, really well written, then I feel you will get connected to it, and it will.
I agree.
Get you there.
Yeah. The quicker you get out of your head, the best.
Exactly.
So if you're just like playing, you're not thinking, you're not anticipating with the other person, like you're not looking for your lines.
And that's hard too, right? Like that took me a lot of years. And even now, it's like I said, right? Like actually that film that I did where I told you the director made me breathe or whatever, that was kind of recently. So even now it's like I still get in my head sometimes. I'm still not fully able.
I mean, we all do, even me.
We all do, exactly.
Yeah, it's not like
it happens.
It's never something that can actually ever like leave you. Like it's something that is with you. But the more you practice it, the better it
That's
gets.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like
it's a technique that can be learned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like and it is a technique. It's weird to say that, but it's like, and that's what they teach you in all the acting workshops is how to be present in the moment, you know, and kind of just like
because we are
shut everything else out.
Yeah, because like we're conditioned as humans that, like, you know, our emotions are quote unquote out of our control. You don't decide I'm gonna cry, you just cry. Like, you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna cry in 5 minutes. Like it's not how it works, right? It's just you go through something and then your body naturally cries. Like it's just a natural response of your body. So you have to condition your body now to control like his timing, you know, like, so this is something that can be learned. It's just like we never learn it because like why would we? Like it's just that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So but as an actor you have to learn this. Yeah. And be able to just tap into it when needed. So so moving on. Let's talk about so have you ever like had like a character where you were so attached to it that you couldn't like leave it? Like have you ever had like a character that you felt so strong with that you're like, well, it's just like it took a while for you to just really let go of that character, like even like when you start, like, you know what I mean?
No, I never had that experience.
No,
I've never had that experience. Like,
sometimes I have some friends who told me this, that they feel such a strong connection with this character that they find themselves sometimes like speaking in this character, like in like, you know, while they're transiting through the metro or while they're driving, they're like reciting some of the words that we're saying on set. So it's interesting because you never know like what kind of impact a character will leave on you as an actor. And so yeah, I mean,
I do agree with that. It's so funny though, because one of my first actually it was like the first thing I ever did was for a French series. It was a French TV show, and I was like the La fille anglophone, like I was like the English girl in the series. But the director literally told me the first day on set, he's like, I need you to act like the most obnoxious, annoying girl you've ever met in your life.
Pretty much,
so you say, when you were talking to me about like, does the character ever leave you? I'm like, oh my god, if that stuck with me afterwards, I'd be like the most annoying human being to people afterwards. Thank God that character didn't stick with me.
That would be bad. Yeah,
that was a fun character to play though.
Yeah.
Like I've never had that where I felt like you know, a character's within me still, or that I couldn't really like let go of or anything. But like I've played characters that were a lot of fun, you know, that I kind of like missed playing after, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
It's not always like the case for people, but sometimes it's just like it leaves like a huge mark on someone's life. So you just never know how it goes.
I can imagine. Well, especially I think if it's like a character that, like, if let's say you're on a TV series or something, and it's you're like a lead on the series, or you're a recurring role, right? Then it's like it becomes part of your daily life in a way. I've never had that opportunity yet. You know, so
well, hopefully it'll come soon. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So I've actually I have your IMDb right here.
Oh my god.
I did print it out, so like I have like a full record of your projects that you've been on. So I'm looking here. It seems like the first. I actually want to go to the TV show section, the past television. So I'm seeing here the L'Ascenseur.
Yes, that was the show I was telling you about.
Which translates to the elevator.
Yeah, that was the one I was telling you about, where the director was like, act like the most annoying girl.
That's the one?
Ever. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that, but I guess since we covered it, why don't we jump into the Detectives in 2018? Where you played Charlisa Clark.
Yeah.
Who is Charlisa Clark?
CBC. That was for CBC. That was actually, that got me my final ACTRA credit.
Yes. Oh, nice. That you needed to get into the union? Wow.
Yes.
Cool.
I think that was the final one, or it was like the second credit or something. Because you need 3 credits, right? For people that don't know.
Yeah.
you need 3 credits to get into the actors union, and yeah, that was one of them. So I played that character. The crazy thing about the detectives is that it's based on real life stories.
Oh.
So it was actually really, really sad. Yeah, it's based on like real. It's one of those like reenactment shows, if that makes sense.
Reenactments,
yeah. Where they have like the scenes of what happens, and then they have like the actual real detectives like talking about what happened.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's like this was a really sad story. This girl, it happened in Ontario actually.
Yeah.
There was a break-in in her apartment, and she got murdered with her boyfriend. They both got murdered by these people.
Oh my God.
And the little boy, she had a little boy, he was like 3 years old. He like walked out of the apartment. They left the kid alone.
Yeah.
He walked out of the apartment like into the street, and someone found him, and he was like alone. And he was like looking for help, this like 3-year-old little boy. So it's such a sad story, because it's like, I played this girl that really existed.
Gotcha.
And it was a case of mistaken identity. Believe it or not, the people that came into her apartment, it was because there was like a drug dealer or something that lived there. She had just moved in. And the people that came in and murdered her and her boyfriend, it's because they thought the boyfriend was like the drug dealer.
Oh shit.
So it was a case of mistaken identity. Anyway.
Right.
Crazy thing, but that was that.
Wow.
But all to say, like, that was a really weird thing for me, because it's like, on one hand, you do this gig where I'm like, yay, now I'm in the actors union, right? And then on the other hand, I'm like, oh my God, like I played this like girl that actually was murdered in real life, and her story ends up being the reason that I get into the actors union, It's like, it's kind of a weird feeling sometimes. With
that's
things
so
like
funny.
that, but
yeah, that's so funny. But actually, I'm gonna take a little. So Talisa also has a podcast as well called Brand of the Leader, where she's usually the interviewer.
Yeah.
So she's used to interview people. She's not used to actually being asked questions.
I know.
So she's being a guest for once. How do you feel being a guest?
I'm nervous for some reason.
You're used to like asking the questions, like being in charge, guiding the podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
It's weird, like
what's on my IMDb? Like, what are you looking into?
Well, this is like a little note for me to kind of just.
Yes, but yes, most of the time I am the interviewer.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with acting. My podcast is interviewing entrepreneurs, mostly Gen X.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs and CEOs, and going through their whole story in business. So it's a business podcast.
Great. Well, speaking of entrepreneurs, so again, if this is your first time tuning in this podcast, so this podcast is called Breakthrough, okay? And the reason why it's called Breakthrough is because we want to inspire people to chase their dreams and to go after their goals.
I love that.
So yes, that's why it's called Breakthrough. And by listening to someone who's been there, who's just kind of living it might inspire someone who's just like watching and listening and be like, hey, I can do this, or you know what I mean? Just have that willpower to
that's awesome.
do whatever they can.
So.
Yeah. So that's and then we usually like have entrepreneurs, actors, other creators. So it's not just like actors that we interview on this podcast, but sometimes we have like entrepreneurs and other creators as well. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Do I consider myself an entrepreneur?
I
think I consider myself an entrepreneur in my personal life.
You do? I feel like as an actor, you're kind of like an entrepreneur. Like this is.
You kind of are, yeah.
Because like you're earning money independently, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that makes you.
You're taking risks, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even just being a creative is a risk in general,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're basically just living a life of projection all the time, and in a very volatile industry. It is like being a business owner.
It is.
I mean, you never know what's going to come next.
I mean, you're your own business, right? Like you're basically like branding yourself. You're selling yourself. That's basically what you're doing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I guess you can like look at it that way, where you are like your own business, and then you're advertising yourself, right? That's kind of it. Also, like, upon like looking at your IMDb a little bit more, I just couldn't help but to notice that you're also like a voice actor.
Yeah.
So you've also like done some voice work.
Yes.
You want to like walk us through some of the stuff that you?
Yeah.
How do you even like? Did you get into voice acting later, or like was it like first before that? Or like?
No, it was later. It's actually kind of funny because like when I got my agent, it was in 2016.
Yeah.
And
So you've been with Bellini since 2016?
yes.
Nice.
Yes. So that's like crazy. It's almost
8 years.
Yeah, it's 8 years.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, it's crazy. The time flew by. When I joined her, I was not part of the union, and I had like no IMDb credits. I don't even know why she took me on, but I'm happy she did.
Yeah.
You know, and then that first year was really amazing for some reason. Like I started off feeling very spoiled because I had like booked a commercial, and that was the first audition she sent me on. I wasn't even unionized or anything.
Right.
And I
You
went
booked it? The first audition?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I went in for a union.
I thought that's beginner's luck or something, but.
Yeah, and even when I went in,
yeah.
the people at the front desk were like, because you have to write in your ACTRA number, right? Your union number.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not part of the union. And the girl at the front desk, she was like, you can't audition for this. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't? Like, my agent sent me here.
Sent me. Yeah.
And she's like, well, you have to be unionized. Apparently, it's really hard to book a commercial, like even more so than TV series, they say, if you're not part of the union. Like,
it's hard to book a commercial if you're not part of the union?
If you're not part, yeah, apparently commercials really, really, really prioritize union people.
That's funny.
I don't know why I booked this commercial.
That's funny because it's the actual opposite in Vancouver.
In Vancouver?
In Vancouver, they will literally not give you the commercial if you're union. You have you have to be pretty much non-union. Like it's like
for non-union commercials or for
I think for any commercial really. I'm not too sure. It's a good question, but it's very well known in Vancouver that like you literally have if you're non-union, you're already like 80% guaranteed of like getting the audition versus someone who's union.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like it's very interesting this contrast.
Yeah, because when you get into ACTRA, right? You have to do this like little course thing. This was a long time ago, so I don't even. But it was like I got into ACTRA, and then they made you go to the ACTRA office, and it was kind of like this 2-day.
Was it here in Montreal?
Yeah, it was in Montreal. It was like a 2-day course or something. Like not course, but they're basically telling you about ACTRA. You know, like it's your joining thing. And when I went, that's when I found that out. They were like. Most of the time commercials, like that's the hardest thing to get a credit for in the if you're non-union because they always prioritize union people or whatever. So anyway, I was feeling pretty proud of myself because I'm like, how did I get and that's the only commercial I've ever booked, by the way, ever in my life. I've never gotten any commercial.
So what do you think was so good about this audition that you got it?
Oh my god, I know what it was. Because you literally see me 2-3 seconds on the camera. I say like one line. I don't know why they booked, and it's still to this day the most money I ever made. Because it was for Cup Noodles.
Cup Noodles? Okay.
Yeah. Couple Noodles.
Right.
Which is a multinational organization,
yeah.
right? And they pay you way too much.
Well, I mean,
they pay.
Commercials is where the money's at. That's very well known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm like, that's the most money I ever made.
Yeah.
Acting, I guess.
Yeah.
I know why I booked it. So it was my first audition ever. And so I had never been to like a professional audition before. And it said the commercial was like there's a girl in a club. She's like dancing in the club, and then she spins around. She sees the DJ, and she's like, "You're crushing it tonight." That was my line. Okay.
Oh shit. Okay.
I'm laughing so much because this is hilarious.
Yeah.
I go in for the audition, and I'm like, okay, it's a girl. She's in a club. I dressed up like I was going to the freaking club, like you would not even imagine. I had like 5-inch heels on. The funny thing too is that when they film you, you don't even see your shoes.
You don't see your shoes, yeah.
But I had like 5-inch heels, and I was wearing this really sparkly dress. It was like a disco dress, okay?
Oh my god. Yeah. I think I see where this is going.
I walked into that that place. It was my first audition ever. I walk in, I'm here for the audition, and everybody else that was there, all these girls, and
We're dressed normally except you.
Yeah. It's like a cattle call, you know? Commercial auditions are like a cattle call. There was like,
wow.
There was a ton of other girls there, and they were all dressed like, maybe like dressed to suggest.
Yes.
Because that's what they say, right? You're not supposed to come fully decked out and like if you're auditioning for a doctor, you don't come dressed as like a doctor or a police officer, right? It's always dressed to suggest. Like, how do I know? I'm just this is
your first audition.
I walk in with this sparkly ass, but it worked.
I guess so, because you got it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh,
I got it. I walked in, and then I come into this audition room, and it was like a panel. They were like 4 people there, and they told me, first of all, it was the funniest audition ever. They were like, okay, you're in the club, pretend you're dancing. There was no music, you know, you're in this room with white walls. This is what actors do. This is how weird we are.
Yes.
So I'm like in front of 4 people.
Dancing with no music.
Yeah, dancing with no music. And then they were like, oh, you have to say this line, you're crushing it tonight. But they made me say it like 30 different times. Imagine, this is for a commercial where you're singing for 2 seconds on the screen.
Yeah.
They made me say it 30 different times. I kid you not, about 30 times.
Crazy. Where
it was like every time was something different. Okay, now you're flirting with the guy. Now you're saying it as if you're angry with him. Now you're saying it like, you know, you're super happy or you're super pumped up.
Yeah.
So I just did that every time, and
it got you through. It got you in.
Yeah, and it got me in.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. What a story.
Yeah.
What a really cool story.
It was funny. And then that same week, I got into the French Union from doing that L'Ascenseur, and that also was my first audition in the French market, and I got that one too.
Wow.
So I was like really feeling high on myself.
Yeah, I was damn, like that. I just started and I'm crushing it. Like,
yes,
it must have felt that way.
It all went downhill from there. I swear to God, it all went downhill from there. My first year acting, I was like, damn, I'm crushing it.
Yeah. You thought you were set. You thought you were in. You're like, oh, you know what?
I really did.
Acting's easy, man.
But you know what I realized? This is what I realized.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to get back to that place. It really is. It was like when I joined my agent and I first started acting, I kind of had this attitude of like, I wasn't really thinking about, like, how do I say this? I didn't really, not to say that I didn't care, but it was like there was this excitement of this being like, okay, these are my first auditions, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't putting pressure on myself with it. And I had a lot of like directors say, you know, the difference between sometimes who they book and who they don't book is like the energy that comes into the room. And I think my energy back then, and I think my energy back then was a little bit more like loose and more like, oh, whatever, if I get it, I get it, if I don't, I don't.
Yeah.
That ends up turning, the more you do it, right, and then you're like really getting
the more you get into your head. The
more you get into this idea of like, oh, I just want to get it or something. But then when you start getting into that mindset, it can really like hinder your energy.
This is something I think I have like talked about in every single podcast so far.
Really?
With all my guests, is rejections, right? Like it's just because it's hard because like you pretty much don't get the role 90% of the time. Okay, like if
90%.
Like I mean, maybe you have to like do like if you're lucky. I mean, like even like if in 10 auditions you get 1, you're very lucky. That's pretty good already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a very good conversion with rates. But the thing is like, what I noticed for me, like the tipping point was that you have to like, I don't know what you gotta do, but you gotta do it somehow, but you have to get to the point where you have to stop caring.
Yeah.
Okay? Because all the auditions that I ever booked, it's always when I didn't give a shit.
Same.
Like
that's why I'm talking about this energy thing.
Yes, and it's normal because when you're starting
about that too.
Because when you're starting out, right, like you're new to you're new to this thing, you're not sure like what you're supposed to do. You're not in your head because you think that you're like, oh yeah, I mean, what do you want me to do? Just pretend like I'm in a club. Yeah, I mean, perfect. I'll just do that. It's not like you rehearsed it. Like you just like
You're just like,
it's beginner's luck,
whatever.
right? Like it's like whatever you want to call it, but it's just like you're not in your head because you don't know the process. You haven't trained. So I guess that sometimes that can work in your favor.
Yeah. Well, I actually I had trained at that time, but it was just kind of more like this newer energy. Like I don't know, it was just that. Yeah. But I have a story exactly what you were saying about. It's always when you don't care that you freaking book the role. Yeah. There was this was actually a voice audition. It was for a video game, and I got the audition. And then I forgot about it. I had so many things to do that week.
A year went by, you're like...
No.
It
was like the week, it was due, I don't know, 3 days later or something.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about it. I was like, it was just totally out of my mind. And then Maria, my agent, messaged me. She's like, hey, are you sending me that voice audition? It was due that day. And I'm like, oh, shit. It was due in like an hour.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I completely forgot about it. I'm in my pajamas at home and I'm like, oh my God. And I didn't even feel like doing it. I was kind of like, oh God.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Fuck it.
Let's just do it. And for voice auditions, a lot of the time you can just do it into your phone, right?
True, yeah.
I had to do a British accent.
Oh my God.
I looked online. I
watched this
accent? Video on YouTube of like someone speaking with a British accent.
That's actually the next question.
Okay.
Just kidding.
I watched this video and then I just do the voice audition super quick and I send it in and I thought to myself, same thing. I was like, okay, whatever. I just
There's no way they're gonna cast me. There's no way I'm gonna get this.
I was like, I did it to do it because like to make my agent happy, whatever.
Yeah.
And I hadn't booked something in a really, really long time. And that was the freaking thing that I booked. And I'm like, how did that happen? Are you kidding me?
Because you were loose, yeah. You weren't thinking.
Another story I have, it's on my IMDb. I did a guest star on this French series called Les Mecs. It was a Québécois, like award-winning French series.
2020.
In 2020.
Wendy.
Yes, it was super fun, that character. But I hadn't booked anything in like a really, really long time. My friend came over to help me with that audition.
Yeah.
And honestly, we did it like freaking 10, 12 times. We did it like a bunch of times. And I was so, at the end of it, I was just
Was it in French? Was this in French?
It was in French, but the character was like an English character speaking French kind of thing. Like French and English. So it was kind of bilingual, but the show is French.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about this audition too was this was a brand new show, so it wasn't out yet. So I didn't know the vibe of it. Like I had no idea if it was like a drama, a comedy, whatever. And the way it read, the script, when I read it, I thought it was a drama. Okay, but it actually ended up being a comedy.
Interesting.
And when I did the audition with my friend, I played it like it was a drama.
Interesting.
I played it like this is like dramatic genre.
Right.
And I ended up booking it, and then when I get onto the set, that
I'll tell you why you booked it.
I kind of know why, because I'm like, okay. Well, I don't know if the other actors knew it was a comedy or something. Maybe they didn't. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But I think it was like, they probably got that tape and were like,
this is absurd.
It was probably funny because I was so dramatic.
Yeah, like almost like melodramatic, right? So like, or not that much.
No, I was playing it like a drama.
Literally
it
drama?
was a comedy.
Okay,
it was a comedy, but I think that's kind of, maybe that makes it funny.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
I think the reason why you actually did get it, it's because when you do a comedy scene, because comedy is like the hardest thing ever, okay? It's super hard. If you ask any actor, they'll always like tell you, drama is always easier than comedy.
Actually, for me, I find comedy easier, to be honest.
So I think the reason why I find comedy harder is because it's hard to make people laugh. Okay, because you have to act in a way that you're not performing for them, but you're actually like, because when the scene is funny, it's not funny for the character.
No.
You know what I mean? As a character, it's not funny, but it's funny for the audience. So you can't like play it like
you can't play the comedy.
You can't play the comedy, right? So you gotta play the circumstances of the scene.
Yes.
And well, like 99% of the time, the lines are funny anyway. Like just like the the circumstances of the scene are funny. All you have to do is just like say the lines, and if you're really connected and you're like you're really saying it and like you're believing what you're saying, it'll be funny.
Yeah.
Because it's naturally funny. You know, so comedy comes from truth. You know, like this is a
exactly.
This is like a well-known fundamental thing. Comedy comes from truth, right? So, and I hear it all the time that you cannot perform to make people laugh. Okay, you cannot do that. You cannot be like, oh, I'm gonna say this line, hopefully they will laugh. You have to stick to your goals. You have to stick to your tactics. You have to stick to like what the character actually wants. Okay, and then if you're actually truthful, if you're actually like living and honoring the character, it will be funny.
Yeah,
it will be funny. So again, so like because you were living the character and then you approach it as a drama, and because maybe you like you were being so dramatic, and you were like truthful to it. Like it's not like you're performing for laughs, right? So. And that's what sold it. And that this whole scene, this whole thing, that's why it was funny.
Yeah. I actually had a friend that did an audition for a movie, and it was the same director actually as they met, and the same thing happened to her. She played it like a drama. Yeah. But it ended up it was like a comedy movie, and she booked that role too.
Really? Yeah. So I mean, like.
So I was like, I don't know, maybe it was director.
Yeah.
You know, like.
But it's the director thing.
But we just.
It's maybe the star guy. Like,
just do the opposite of what the genre is. You know. I don't know.
I love that. That's amazing.
But, yeah.
Just to go back to like voice acting.
Oh yeah. Yes. Okay. Voice acting has been literally the only thing that I've been booking since COVID.
Interesting.
Yes. I've not booked an on-camera. Yeah.
Nice.
I haven't booked an on-camera role in like 4 years or something.
That's fine.
Which is crazy. I wish I could say different. Well, I've done like short films and stuff here and there, so I shouldn't say like nothing on camera, but
but like nothing major, I guess.
That's yeah.
That's okay. Like we all have like our own path, and I feel like
maybe I'm in a weird age category now or something. I don't know.
I mean, there could be a lot of factors as to why this is happening.
I think it's not being in the room anymore too, because I realized because since COVID, everything's been more remote now, right? Where you can send in tapes. Yeah. There's advantages and disadvantages to that. To be honest, now recently I'm kind of like, I feel like this is a disadvantage for me at least. A lot of other actors don't. For them, it's different. They actually think it's an advantage because you get to control your tape. But I like in-person feedback, and I like when I walk into the room and they can feel my energy in the room, you know, and also they can direct you to go into a different direction if they need to, right? Yeah. Because you're really just kind of guessing as to what they want, and then you're hoping that your tape that you send in is what they want.
Good enough, yeah. But I think like also, I mean, I think there's like pros and cons to both, like the actual.
There is for sure.
I feel like I'm leaning towards more the self tapes. Honestly, I feel like it's better because you can just like send your best take. While you can't really do that in person, you kind of have to just. I mean, you're lucky if you get a second go at it. Like, you know what I mean? Like if sometimes it's like, oh, you've got like one go, one take, and this is it. Like it's just if you mess up your lines, if something happens, they might feel bad for you. They might let you redo it, but. Usually speaking, you won't get more than 2 takes from what I saw. So, I mean, there's this layer, but also, like, I agree with you. The in-person experience where you get to make your first impression, you get to meet them. And sometimes, honestly, I've seen it, like, live happen where if you go in the room, okay, and, like, you're being playful, you're talking with the director, with the showrunners, and you just crack a joke, and they're laughing. You know what I mean? And then you do the audition, and they're like, all they remember is that joke that you cracked at the beginning of the thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that's the guy who like cracked that joke. Yeah, I can imagine like working with this guy. Like it's like cracking jokes all day long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like sometimes like it's like stuff like that. Like it's just like it's that impression that if you can just like make it, it's priceless. Also, like it's obviously like a double-edged sword because if you do a joke and it doesn't land well, it's not good. Then you're going home, like you know what I mean. So. It's a very
like you said. I mean, you don't have as many takes and stuff that you can do.
I wish.
But to be honest, now with self tapes, I try to limit my amount of takes because I feel like I feel like you can really get into this this bad zone of like, you know, doing it for freaking hour and a half or something, and your takes aren't going to get any better. You know what I mean? Like I try to, honestly, now I try to do it in like 5-6 takes max. Because I'm like, if I was going in person.
Also, you don't want to overthink it too much, because like also you don't want to get into this.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to overthink it. Every time I've ever spent like way too much time on a self-tape, like the last takes were not the best ones. They always looked a little bit more like
rehearsed. Because the thing is, like, you want to rehearse it, but like when you present it to camera, you're gonna make it look like it's not rehearsed. You're gonna make it look like it's organic. So the more you do it, the less organic it gets. You obviously want to do it a couple times so that it gets good. You obviously don't just want to wing it and then just send the first take. But I agree that I'm not a big fan.
Depends though. Sometimes the first take is.
Oh yeah, no. Sometimes like, you hit a home run and it happens, but usually speaking, it's not always the case. But you do want to like. I don't tend to like overdo the audition. I'm kind of like you. I just like do a couple takes and then I just send it, because I also like want to leave room to play in case I do book it. I don't want to like fall into this like rehearsal pattern where it's like the same thing, like, and you're just like redoing it and you're saying the lines in the same way. So I agree. That's definitely something that you don't want to do too much.
Yeah.
We're gonna have some fun, because I did tell you in the beginning that there's an ultimate question in this podcast.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So, in your view, okay?
My view.
What do you think are some of the greatest monologues of all time?
Oh my god.
Because we're gonna take a look at them. This is why the iPad is for, if you haven't figured that out. The iPad is here because we're gonna take a look at them, and then we're gonna have like a live reaction on those monologues. But
what do I think are the greatest monologues?
Yes, some of those like memorable monologues that you watched that was so compelling.
Oh my gosh, I feel so put on the spot.
I know. This is why it's the ultimate question. This is the point.
I feel like there's so many of them, but I can't think off the top of my head.
Is there one that speaks to you?
I feel like you know what? I was watching Forrest Gump not too long ago. There's a pretty good monologue in there that Tom Hanks does.
Let's see. Because I haven't watched Forrest Gump in a long time.
Like, yeah.
Let's see if it's there. All right. So what was it? Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Put Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks monologue. I think it's like when he's sitting on the bench and he's.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Is it at the end of the movie? All right, let's see it.
Hello. My name's Forrest Gump. You want a chocolate? I could eat about 1.5 million of these. My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Those must be comfortable shoes. I bet you could walk all day in shoes like that and not feel a thing. I wish I had shoes like that.
My feet hurt.
Mom always said there's an awful lot you can tell about a person by their shoes. Where they going, where they been. I've worn lots of shoes. I bet if I think about it real hard, I could remember my first pair of shoes. Mama said they'd take me anywhere. She said they was my magic shoes.
All right, Forrest. You can open your eyes now. Let's take a little walk around. How those feel?
You know what the monologue though that I
Let's talk about this one first. and then-
Oh, okay.
So what do you think is so good about this monologue that you like so much?
I don't even remember if that was the scene I was
It's a great
thinking.
monologue. By the way. I love this monologue. It's really
Yeah, I don't know if that was the scene really that I was like thinking of,
good.
but there is such a like simplicity in it though, but with so much depth if you really think about it, like
Yeah.
in terms of just the quote, you know, and,
Yeah.
and about
Also, like it does make you feel for the character more because you hear him say like, "Hey, do you want chocolate? I like your shoes," and he's sitting on the bench talking to this lady who's not engaging with him basically.
yeah,
Right. So
yeah,
it does like it does like I guess like show you how hard it is sometimes for people to just like communicate and then get attention. Not everyone is just like good at communication. Some people are socially awkward. Some people are just like not comfortable in front of people. So this is a great scenario.
I'm also really big on like I love comparison of like using metaphors or analogies for deeper meaning. So
Yeah.
so just even that like oh, my mom always told me life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
It's such a simple quote,
Mhm.
but like it has such a deeper meaning to it.
Yeah.
And I'm all about that kind of stuff. Like
I
I love like metaphors and analogies
That's amazing.
like that. to
Speaking
kind
about
of
like metaphors and
speak about
analogies, I have like a good monologue that I want to show you, and then maybe you can show me. Have you ever watched the movie Coach Carter? It's
I think so.
It's a basketball movie, and this is actually one of the honestly most inspiring monologue I think in modern movie history. So if you just write Coach Carter, I'm pretty sure that'll come up. It's like a very iconic. This is the scene.
Okay.
So
I don't know if I've ever seen.
so it's like a bunch of teenagers that it's actually a true story. This actually happened for real.
Okay.
It's like a bunch of teenagers who played basketball, but they were losing a lot. Okay, so in the beginning they weren't winning. They were getting crushed. They were so immature. They were so clueless about life. They were like high school little kids, right? And then the school hires this new coach, Coach Carter, and he comes in and he basically like shows them a new way of like playing the sports. Not only they get better at basketball and start winning more games, but he also ties their basketball success with their academic success,
Okay.
right? Because all these guys were like either like high school dropouts or they weren't gonna be anything. They weren't gonna make like anything of their lives.
Okay.
So when Coach Carter comes in, they're like, "Look, if you want to be like a professional basketball player, well, you gotta sit down, get good grades, and like make something of yourself." So this is a scene where one of the guys who was like a rebel in the beginning, and he wasn't quite like on board with the whole like academic like being like academically involved. Like all he wanted was to play basketball. That's all he cared about.
Okay.
But you can see like he realizes the power of like losing like your life, ending up in jail, ending up in prison if you don't actually like make something of yourself. Because a lot of people just end up on the street. They end up like committing like thefts and crimes and whatnot. So.
Sir, they can cut the chain off the door, but they can't make us play.
We've decided we're gonna finish what you started, sir.
Yeah, so leave us be, coach. We got shit to do, sir. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Sir, I just want to say thank you. You saved my life.
I love that.
It's a very like honestly. Every time I watch this monologue, I'm like, when he says like, "Thank you, sir, you saved my life," because this guy was like, in the movie, he loses people and stuff like that. So if it wasn't for this coach, he would have like end up either being killed on the streets or end up being in jail. But then through what the coach teaches, like not only he's like a great like basketball coach, but he also like showcases the importance of like showing up and like going to school, like getting a degree and like going to university, and he's like a big advocate for that. It's very inspiring, the words, right?
What I love so much about that monologue is that it's true. He starts off the kid by talking about how they're not afraid of their failure. They're afraid of their power.
Yeah.
And it's so
they have so much
true.
power. Yeah.
But it's so true in life that a lot of people, we fear our potential.
Yes.
And it's weird to say that, but that's really what holds people back. They actually say a lot of the time when people are what's the word, I'm blanking on the word, procrastinating. Like a lot of people have this opinion of like when someone's procrastinating, they'll look at that like, oh, that person's lazy, or like they don't want to get around to doing what they want to do. But actually there's a proven, like when they did studies on procrastination, a lot of the time it's because the person that's procrastinating, they are afraid to do what it is that they need to do because they're afraid of like they're like afraid of the success afterward, or like being judged or whatever. You know, it's like
it's almost like they're getting in their own way.
Yeah.
It's like they're
getting in their own way.
Yeah, because they're like not believing that maybe I can't be that good. Maybe I can do this. You know what I mean? So, they think of a scenario that like, it's just it's there's no way this is gonna happen for me, so I'm gonna therefore like self-sabotage myself.
Exactly.
It's like literally self-sabotage, right?
Yeah.
So
People
when you think
do
about
that a lot.
it's a very inspiring.
We've all been there.
Yes, we've all been there.
Yeah.
When you think about it, right? So we all get in our own way. We all get in our head. And once you sort of let go, this is really like when you start like when the magic happens. And again, like you see this all the time. Like when you do an audition, you just have to set it and forget it. That's kind of the mentality you need to have in order to start booking more. Because like I never look back on an audition when I do it. Once I send it, I forget it. It's just set it and forget it. Sometimes like I heard back like a month and a half later, where I thought that I already casted somebody. I was like, wait, I got this? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you just never know what the process is.
Yeah, so I think letting go is like a huge part. Have you ever like read the book The Power of the Actor by Ivana Chubbuck?
I don't know if I read that one, but I've heard of that one. Yeah.
It's a great book. It's
I've
actually
read a lot of acting books, but I don't think I've read
It's one of my
that
favorite acting books. So Ivana Chubbuck, she's like a big LA acting coach. She trained with like Meisner and Stanislavski and all these big guys. So like her with like along with like Larry Moss and Stella Adler.
Okay.
So she's like one of those the students. And eventually she started like her own studio. So she has like her own acting studio.
Okay.
In Los Angeles, yes. And obviously like with acting, and once you become a coach, you end up like writing a book. I think that's I noticed.
Yeah, a lot of them.
This is the pattern.
That's true.
You write like Larry Moss has a book. Ivana Chubbuck has a book.
I read Larry Moss books.
Larry Moss.
Yeah.
The what is it again? The Intent of Living.
Yes, the Intent of Living. I think it's called that.
Intent of. Pretty sure it's like living something. Intent of Living.
Yeah. That one I read not too long ago actually. I'm really bad with titles.
Yeah. I'm not great either.
But that's the one I read actually pretty recently.
Yeah. So Ivana Chubbuck, she also like wrote her own book. It's called The Power of the Actor, and she has a very unique 12 steps method to acting. I highly encourage you, and honestly, like anybody who hasn't like read the book, The Power of the Actor, fantastic book. So it talks about like 12 steps that an actor should absolutely do before doing a role or an audition. And the last step, you know what the last step is? Letting go. The last step is just letting go.
Yeah.
After you've done all the work, all the 11 steps, all you have to do is just like trust yourself. All you have to do is just like let go and trust that it'll be there. Because if you've done the work, right? If you've done the emotional preparation, if you know what your goals are in the scene, if you've done your tactics, if you've done all that stuff, and then you rehearse the scene, when it comes the time to perform, whether that's on set or in front of the camera or whatever, it will be there. You know, you gotta trust yourself, right?
You don't even really have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, you just gotta let go because you've done the work. You gotta trust yourself, and the last step is just let go.
Yeah.
So I feel like you should be able to let go, whether that's for the performance and when you finish like taping it, just let it be, right? Like just like send it to your agent and just like don't think about it. Move on to the next, and you won't like honestly
I've
like.
gotten better at that now.
It's a very good.
Let go thing.
It's a very good like coping mechanism with rejections too, because like it's really easy to like get triggered over rejections, but honestly like once you start letting go and like not thinking about it, like it'll be like, oh,
yeah,
it's fine because I wasn't thinking about booking it anyway. But I'm like,
you know, it's so
I plan myself like, yeah, you know what I mean? So like it's just.
I actually thought of something so funny just now.
What?
I'm like, literally I feel like every artist I know is like super sensitive in their personal life, like when it comes to rejection. Yeah, like I don't feel like actors or artists are very good at the detachment thing when it comes to their personal lives. Like let's say you get rejected by like a boyfriend or girlfriend or a lover. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the artists I know are very sensitive and get very, very like, you know, those kind of things will affect them, including me.
Yeah.
But when it comes to acting, it's like we do have the thick skin, you know? We get rejected all the time. And I have this thought, I'm like, maybe it's that we're so used to getting rejected in our professional lives that when it comes to the personal lives, and then if you're rejected in the personal life too, that's when you're like, like what?
I feel like it's also like,
why is this my life?
No, I agree.
Rejected all the time.
I mean, like nobody likes getting rejected. Like it sucks. It does suck to get rejected, but like it's also like part of the like. I mean, I can't think of anybody who's never gotten rejected. Like I mean, I've gotten rejected many times. Like it's absolutely normal, and like this is how you grow. Like I've gotten rejected. Like
even people. This is actually something I learned, and this kind of made me feel like. It showed me a different perspective. So over COVID, one of my friends is a very successful actor, like lives in LA, on an Emmy, was on an Emmy winning show, like as a lead character and everything, and like has a lot of success as an actor, you know? And in my mind, as a friend and being on like the outside of that, I always thought, I'm like, okay, he's at a level now where it's like, he gets recognized and stuff like that. And I always assumed, when you get to that level, like it's easier when you audition, like you're gonna be getting things all the time type of thing. Over COVID, he actually used me as a reader a lot of the time for pretty much all of his auditions. Like we would do it over Zoom or whatever, and I would be his reader. And it was like the same thing as everyone else, you know? It was like we would do so many auditions, and I'd be on the other side being like, that was amazing, man. Like for sure you're gonna book that. Yeah. But even people that are on like a super high level get rejected. Yeah, I mean it's just a lot too. Even the most famous actors, when you like sometimes you can go on Google and you see like Jessica Alba is competing against whoever, for like a role, like they even have. Yeah, I mean, like it's as I said, like you will get rejected, like most like 90% of the time, and I mean, like it's like literally like it's like when you apply for a job, it's like literally the same thing. Like how many of those interviews you actually do get? Yeah, like you don't land like a lot of them. You know, like you gotta go like through like 5 or 10 interviews to actually land one if you're lucky. So it's kind of the same process. Like it's just like this is like the way life works. This is the way life works, right? Like if you do like if you're trying to be an athlete, you know, you can try like run 100 meters. Like you're not gonna like 100 meters under 10 seconds the first time you actually run 100 meters. It'll take you like a couple of times. You're gonna fail. You're gonna like pass the 10 seconds mark, and then maybe after like 1,000 times, you're gonna do it you're gonna do it under 10 seconds, right? Like it's just it's just like this is the way life works. It's just the more you do it, the easier it gets, and then I don't really even think it gets easier.
I mean, it doesn't get easier, but like I guess like you get used to it.
You get used to it. Okay, the rejection gets easier. Yeah. I think it's like what they always say, you have to do this because you love it, because if you don't, like, if you're doing it to get some type of, you know, like if you're doing it because you want to actually gain success and everything, and also success is relative anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's individual, like what is
It's
success
very
mean to
subjective,
you versus what it's very subjective. But I think like, the industry is so volatile and you never know what you're gonna get, and there's a lot of luck that's involved as well as talent. I mean, you could have all the talent in the world, but sometimes it's just like being in the right place at the right time. You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just luck of the draw.
Yeah.
You know? Sometimes
like-
it's another actor that's dropped out of a project and then you get to go in.
Yeah. But I mean, like, also, like, I mean, you can never, like, beat yourself up for that because, you know, more often than not, it's actually not your fault. Like, sometimes it could be like, this person is too short, this person is too tall.
Yeah.
I actually have a funny story about that. You know Ryan Reynolds?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody knows Ryan Reynolds.
I mean, I don't know him personally.
Ryan Reynolds, I actually met Ryan Reynolds' first agent when I was in LA once.
Okay.
And he told us a funny story about Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, when he got started in the beginning, he was getting rejected a lot. And he couldn't understand why he was getting rejected. He's like, you know, like, I feel like I'm doing a good job. I feel like, you know, like I'm living this and like I'm feeling it. He was getting rejected all the time. And do you know the reason why he was being rejected most of the time? Like,
why?
So turns out, because like I think the agent did ask for some feedback from casting or something, but it turns out that Ryan Reynolds, the reason why the reason why he was getting rejected was not because his acting was not good. He was terrific. He was amazing. Okay. It's not because of that. The reason why Ryan Reynolds did not book anything in the beginning was because he was too handsome for the roles. He was too good looking. He was like going out for all these roles that they wanted like a rougher guy. Like they wanted like somebody who was like maybe a little more fatter, or like I don't know, something maybe gross or something.
Yes, it's true. That can
and then
happen.
Ryan Reynolds would like film his tape with his cute little face.
Yeah.
And he would send it in and like, I mean, that's nice, it's great, but it's not the guy we want. Like,
it wasn't fitting into the. No, it's so true.
I mean, can you imagine like getting rejected because you're too good looking?
Yeah.
I mean, like.
Okay, so I feel like I'm gonna sound pretentious saying this because this is not how. It was not because I was like too good looking, but that happened to me once in the same kind of way where it was like
I didn't know. Too good looking.
No. So that's what I'm saying. This is gonna make me sound pretentious. No, but it was one of those things. My agent got feedback for this because I made it like.
You dressed too much for the role.
No, I made it like pretty far in this show. It was for what was it? It was on CBC. Well, I didn't end up getting the role, but I'll tell you why. Yeah. It was a recurring character. It was like a pretty big show filming in Montreal. Anyway, and I got to like the finals, and the casting director was like, wrote to Maria, my agent, and was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Lanisa is like a shoo-in and this and that. So we were back and forth with them. And she was like, I'm pretty sure she's in, like we're just waiting for the production. Because that's the other thing, right? Is it's not just the casting director, it's like the casting director vouches for you, but then production has to okay it, and then if it's a TV show, they have to send it to the network and whatever. Oh yeah, so at this point it was the network. Okay.
Right.
So I was at that point.
So it got to the network. That's
got
huge.
to the network.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And then they came back, but I was like, I really didn't understand this feedback because I'm like, what? Like you could downplay me or something. But it was kind of what you were saying about dress. So my hair was super blonde at the time. I was like really like blonde. Almost platinum blonde hair. Okay. Right. And I didn't end up getting the role, and Maria asked for feedback. She's like, what happened? Like, it went to the network and everything. And they said, they literally wrote in the email, they went for someone less glamorous looking.
Less glamorous?
Less glamorous looking. And I still remember what I wore. I had
Did you get fact go and check if the person was actually less glamorous than you?
No, I was so salty after that. I don't even know who got that role.
I'm saying one thing is.
I was like, you could dye my hair. Like, what the heck? That's so weird. But but now I really try to like. I don't wear. I try to be very natural in my object, like unless it calls for the character to be very, dressed up or something.
Messy
But
stuff.
I try to like really, and even Maria's told me that she's like, don't wear a lot of makeup
Mm-hmm.
for roles and stuff because that's not the first. Even Les Mecs, and I booked that role thankfully, but they got back to Maria. My first tape that I sent in, it was a tape even in 2020. This was before COVID, but I had sent in a tape, and they contacted Maria and were like, can you tell her to redo it, but looking more natural?
Like
Yeah.
in the face, right? Gotcha.
Yeah, like looking more natural, less like less dressed, less glamorous. I
Less
guess.
glamorous,
I don't
yeah.
know. Sometimes you think, well, especially as a woman, right? I guess it's not the same for men, but as a woman, you think like, oh, okay, I gotta like look my prettiest or whatever,
Yeah.
and
I agree.
but
sometimes you
it's
also
always
want to
the
like,
best.
yeah.
Actually, they say it's better to look more natural because
Mm.
the casting will look at you and
They'll
be able
know.
to see what they can like
Do with you.
do with you.
Yeah.
So I try to be a lot more natural now because it's working.
Well, that's great.
It's
That's amazing.
easier.
Okay, I think this is a great point to actually end the podcast. I think it's been a great one. What do you think?
Yeah.
Is that your first? Is that your first podcast? Was that your first?
Yeah, that was my
I mean, obviously
first
you
podcast.
you used to like interviewing people, but
Yes.
is that your first time being like a guest on?
Yeah, this is my first time.
Yeah.
I didn't. There was no. I did a. I don't know if it was a podcast, but it was this girl was doing like interviewing, same thing as you know, actors or also like entrepreneurs, just like people in the city of Montreal. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that was the only other time I think that I've been interviewed.
Well, we'll make sure to have you again sometime.
Yeah,
As well.
it was fun.
Hopefully in a year, in a couple months, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much again, everybody, for watching. Lanisa Dawn, everybody. Thank you so much again for joining me.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.